The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi all. Thanks for your registration and participation in the webinar SharePoint 2013, the essential migration process. The webinar is organized by Cygnet Infotech in association with M1 and Testing Viz. Would like to provide you a brief introduction regarding Cygnet Infotech. Cygnet Infotech is a global software service and solution provider. We have Microsoft, Oracle, Sitefinity, and Sitecore partners. Apart from that, we have client presence in 23 plus countries, and Cygnet Infotech holds quality management processes and certifications like ISO and CMMI level 3. To learn more about Cygnet Infotech, please visit www.cygnet-infotech.com. The webinar is being organized in association with Testing Viz and M1. Testing Viz is easy and affordable test automation tool that uses keyword-driven testing and data-driven testing for web and cloud application. M1 is ordering system for enterprise application that provides a range of smartphone-based ordering apps for B2B, retail, and restaurants. Concern webinar, that is SharePoint 2013, the essential migration process, is been presented by my colleague, Mr. Jay Mehta. Jay is SharePoint lead and consultant, and also he is an MCT. I'll pass on the line to Jay, and Jay will take it forward.
Hello everybody. First of all, I would like to thank you everyone to join us on this webinar series. This is our third migration related webinar, and I'm glad to take it further. After this session, we'll have a question and answer session as well. So once we're done with this migration related webinar, you can ask your questions to us. Okay, we'll not take much time on this, and we'll straight away moving to the objectives of the webinar. So we'd like to start with the essential migration process to SharePoint 2013, and then after we'll targeting each segment of the migration where you can perform the migration from SharePoint 2010 to SharePoint 2013. Like we'll consider the content databases, service application databases, site collections, how you can migrate user experience. We can also like in the general solutions, we do have workflows in our SharePoint environments, how you can migrate the workflows, because over there Microsoft have made so many changes with the workflow platform itself. Along with that, we'll considering the continuous into the migration cycle, so we'll talk about the disruptions and the downtime, and last we'll consider and validate the successful migration, and followed by that we'll have a question and answer session. So we'd like to start with the essential migration process. So basically, well, how this point comes in, like in which situation and in what are the consideration you need to take after the migration process to be done in the SharePoint 2010 to SharePoint 2013. So we would like to start with a few of the reasons. Basically, these are the reasons we have identified with our customers, those who have asked to move and why to move from SharePoint 2010 to SharePoint 2013. So obviously, it's not going to be adopted for the minor changes. There are many architectural and functionality relevant changes have been happened with SharePoint 2013, particularly in terms of UI. So obviously, you can adopt SharePoint 2013 for increase the end user productivity as well. Like it gives you same screen, you can update in add information instantly, rather you are having the pop-ups and all, as you can see in the SharePoint 2010 environment. It's a good ROI generation. Like initially you may have to deal with the cost, because might be few of the customers may have moved from MOS 2007, or they have recently adopted SharePoint 2010, so that could quite issues. So in that case, we may have some scenarios with respect to the good ROI. In terms of social enterprise and web content management, so many different features comes up with the social enterprise, like you can connect with your other social enterprise, like you can integrate linked Facebook, etc. You can also look after the web content management in terms of there is a separate search content web parts are available, so like basically you can define the search within your content pages itself. Gives you the strong and effective enterprise search in terms of, as I said, mentioned about the content management. In terms of sharing, it also integrated with the integrated with the SkyDrive, so you can connect your SkyDrive account with your SharePoint environment. You can also look after the apps and the marketplace, so like you can take the advantages of the applications to be hosted on the app store and the marketplace, so you can download the applications and you can consume them maybe on the free basis, or in the like you need to purchase them. Improved BI for the decision makers. Automated governance is also possible, like you need to define certain in terms of workflows, and you can automate your governance as well. It is easy to moving from SharePoint 2013 to Office 365. So like as the Office 365 itself is now been moved to the SharePoint 2013. So like if your existing user base want to move to the online version of Office 365, so they can easily move it to the from SharePoint 2013 to Office 365. So like these are the reasons to migrate to the SharePoint 2013, and maybe asked by some other customers with respect to different requirements as well. Coming up to the migration process. So if you look at it's a pretty straightforward migration process. Initially, you need to start with the planning, prepare, test, implement, and validate your migration. So basically you can say it's a migration process which is offered by Microsoft itself, and we can just stick with these process areas, and you can achieve your better migration, like in terms of a faultless migration you can achieve. We'll discuss certain things in detail as we go further in this webinar. So like we'll not hold this screen anymore on this, and moving to some other important information, like before you start your migration from SharePoint 2010 to SharePoint 2013, so it is important that you must have to be aware with the server prerequisites. In terms of server prerequisites, like you need to remove the previous version of SharePoint, but this is only in terms of if you would like to install the SharePoint 2013 on the same box or same machine. Like sometimes we may have to look after the hardware costing, so like you may need to use your existing hardware. So in that case, it is preferable that you should start with the backing up your farm, and then after you can just uninstall all SharePoint version. Obviously it's going to be your SharePoint 2010, and then after you have to also uninstall the other dependent products as well, like if you have installed Office web apps on the same machine, and project server if you are taking the leverage of EPM capabilities of Microsoft. So after doing that, you need to start installing the new version of SharePoint 2013, and then after you need to start restoring process your backup which you have taken earlier, and then you need to start with the restore process, and then after other several steps that you need to carry out. Other details about the hardware and the software that you can take it from the TechNet. It's a widely open, and in terms of your infrastructure and based on your existing SharePoint topology, you may adopt the hardware and software infrastructure. Next, would like to discuss about the end client software requirement. So like obviously as we are the Office 2010 or Office 2013 user, so like you have the fully offline and integrated experience with the SharePoint itself. The SharePoint Designer comes with the two different versions, obviously, like SharePoint 2010 Designer. Basically, it was only with the SP version 14 side. So like now this is a kind of a different terminology comes in SharePoint 2013, like because this is quite an initial state to speak on this, but I would like to let you know about this point is in the SharePoint 2013 you have two different versions available, like SharePoint 2010, which is basically called as SP14, and if you totally consider SharePoint 2013, so it's considered as a SP14. So like if you are having the SharePoint Designer 2010 on your desktop machine or laptop where you are like information or developer profile, so you can deal with the SharePoint 2013, but it is only restricted with the SharePoint 2013 but SharePoint 14 mode. Similarly, the SharePoint Designer 15 is available in the market as well. So like it supports both the versions of site, like you can deal with the SP mode 14 and SP mode 15 as well. Along with that, the web browsers, like it supports the web browsers Internet Explorer 8 or higher, and all the other supported browser which are broadly used in the overall the globe, like Firefox, Chrome, and Apple Safari. So this is basically the end client software requirements are needed while you are dealing with the SharePoint 2013. Now, to discuss about these points is only the reason is like whenever we perform the migration, so we need to also consider the migration with respect to the end user. It means end user is having what type of applications available on their machine. So based on that, they can access the new version of the SharePoint 2013. Now talking about more in terms of migration methods. Now basically if I have to talk about the migration methods, so if you guys are familiar with the earlier process and the methods of the migrations, like while moving from SharePoint 2007 to SharePoint 2010, there are a couple of methods available, like in place upgrade, database attach, and the hybrid one as well. But now in SharePoint 2013, the in-place upgrade is not possible, because obviously the SharePoint 2013 comes with the both modes of SharePoint 2010 and 13. So that's why the in-place migration is now not possible. It is possible, I would say, but I will discuss in the next slide. So as of now, we'll start focus on the discussing about the database attach approach, and would like to share the details, like the supported databases for database attach method is like your content databases of your web applications, project databases if you have the project server instances enabled on your SharePoint environment, search admin with respect to your search site, like obviously the search service which is in the SharePoint 2010, profile, it basically related to your user profile services, social databases, manage metadata databases basically with respect to your social networking and tagging, where you are managing your taxonomy and taxonomy, Secure Store where you are storing your keys, and the access database if you are consuming the access services. So all these databases can be possible to be database attach upgrade method. So you just need to take the backup of these databases and you can restore them to the SharePoint 2013 targeted SQL environment, and based on and after that you can start perform the migration. We'll discuss the more things about the migration in terms of PowerShell commands later in this webinar. Now there are some databases which cannot be possible to be supported for the database attach, and those are the configuration databases obviously for your SharePoint farm itself, and your sync databases, basically it is referred with user profile services, and search index databases which is not going to be upgraded with database attach approach. So in all this case you need to establish new databases for them, and you need to start the appropriate services for them to take the to take your migration and your all SharePoint environment get work properly. Now in terms of in-place upgrade, obviously as I mentioned, it's not supported, but it is only for the V2V. Now here in SharePoint or even in the Microsoft has clarified that there are two types of upgrades are basically possible, B2B and V2V. So B2B is basically considered as a build to build. So for example, if I have the SharePoint 2010 and I would like to upgrade it with its Service Pack 1, so that basically will call as a B2B. So like build to build, like, so no major updates basically going to be upgraded. But when it comes to the V2V, so like it's a version to version upgrade. So obviously you have to consider the SharePoint 2010 and SharePoint 2013. So like there are the major two versions are going to be changed. So that's why, so V2V basically is not possible in place farm upgrade. But in this case, like if Microsoft is going to release the Service Pack 1 or any cumulative packages for the SharePoint 2013, so in that case in place farm upgrade is obviously possible because it will be referred as a B2B. Taking further, now focusing on the migration process and the checklist. So basically this is the what methodology we adopt over here in Cygnet Infotech to migrate our customers SharePoint environment. So it is better to document each and everything, and you can start with the planning, like you have to start preparing the checklist. Like you have to list down your content databases which you would like to migrate them. Look after the service applications if you would like to manage the service applications and to be migrated in your new environment. Look after the farm and web applications as well, but particularly your farm topology has to be considered, and the web application with respect to your authentication mechanism which you have applied, because over here the quite change have been considered. Because if you are creating the web applications in SharePoint 2010, so basically it starts and the default it is come with the classic mode of authentication. But if you creating the web applications in SharePoint 2013, so it starts with the claims based authentication. So in that case, while you are preparing your checklist, it is important that you note down your web application authentication mechanism. So it is important that you need to work on that and make it compatible to be migrated with SharePoint 2013. List down all the customizations which you have applied so far in terms of your features, solutions, site templates, list templates, workflows, obviously the custom workflows which you have developed with the Visual Studios, and after that you need to also plan your upgrade your performance as well. Like after putting some amount of resources in terms of hardware like RAM, CPUs, CPU cores, if you are having the virtual environments, and based on that you need to plan your performance, means what type of performance that you are looking for. So at least these are the parameters can be evaluated at the validation time, so you can consider that whether your migration went successful or not. So if it is not, then you can take the appropriate actions and you can come out of it, and you will have a better performance with new version of SharePoint 2013. Okay, so moving to the next point, and to be specific to the content databases. So like while you are starting and dealing with the content databases, so obviously you need to create the web application first in the SharePoint 2013 environment. So as like looking at the screen and the picture, you can see that how many applications I have available in the SharePoint 2010 farm. I need to create them into the SharePoint 2013. But here it is not necessary to create them all, because it could be the scenario like you may need to only migrate your only one web application. So you just need to create your one web application to be available on the SharePoint 2013 environment, and then you can start the migration process. Now you will start the migration process with respect to the content databases. So there are a few PowerShell commands are available. So for a farm, yes, the upgrade SP farm is possible, but obviously this command is going to be more referred while you are dealing with the B2B. When it comes to the content database, so first of all you need to start taking backup and restoring it to the new SharePoint 2013 environment related SQL Server, and then after you need to start and apply the test SP content database. So obviously this command will be taken place on the SharePoint 2010 environment, and you need to collect all the necessary and important information where you have the what are the features are going to be migrated and what are the features are not going to be migrated, and where you need a warning level or totally not possible scenarios to be recorded in this stage. After that, you can upgrade your SP content databases as well as you can mount them as well. In terms of SP site, you have several commands to test your SP site with its compatibility. You can repair it, and you can also perform the upgrade as well. We'll talk about more upgrade with respect to the SP site later, because that can be considered as a site collection upgrade. So we'll discuss them in a separate topic in this webinar. And here you go. As discussed, you just start upgrading your content databases. So first of all, test your content databases and record the things which can be migrated and which cannot be, because once you start migrating, so before that, it is important that you should bring the compatibility with respect to the SharePoint 2013. So it gives you more better idea on this. And then after, once you complete your migration, so you just need to start attaching your content databases which is migrated to your web application. So for that, you can use mount SP content database PowerShell command, and it will start the migration process for the content databases. Now coming up to the service application. So as mentioned that the very limited service applications can be migrated, and we have discussed them in the very first topic. So we'd like to only go through with the PowerShell commands. The PowerShell commands basically we have with respect to the each services respectively. So you can take the all other information from the TechNet as well, but I have mentioned some of the commands, like you can create the new service applications, and later you can also restore them and upgrade them as well. So I have just one example with respect to the service application of search. So like I can upgrade my SP enterprise search service application, as well as I can restore it as well. So this type of commands are available. So basically that's similar to your content database migration, and you can perform this all operations, and you can migrate the service applications. Most of the time the scenarios what we have seen so far is like you have to less work on the service application area, because some users and the clients customers are usually to start using the service applications to be fresh, and it is better to you do it. Otherwise, like so many junk data can be available, and if it is not cleaned properly into their previous installation of SharePoint, may cause the compatibility issue, not on the earlier state but in the later state. Means sometimes it happens like some of the users have the issue, but rest of the other users can have a faultless journey with SharePoint 2013. Taking further and moving up to the site collections related migrations part. So like whenever you comes with the site collection migration, so like a new approach is available in SharePoint 2013. If I have to talk about the SharePoint 2010, so over where once you perform the migration, there is always an option available to take the UI effect of SharePoint 2010 was the visual upgrade. But now in this case, now visual upgrade is now no more available in SharePoint 2013 migration. So for that, you have the deferred site collection upgrade is available. Obviously, it's considered as a faster upgrade approach. In between, it also allows you to see the migration. So like you can preview your SharePoint 2010 sites in SharePoint 2013 by just looking at the preview. Now there is a very interesting mechanism is available over here, like when you start previewing your SharePoint 2010 environment in SharePoint 2013. So basically it creates the snapshots in the SQL database, and on the snapshot basically it applies all these features and the look and feel. So at least it gives you the complete preview of your existing site of SharePoint 2010 in SharePoint 2013. and once you are not adopting the preview but you take it further, so that snapshot will be deleted automatically for the better performance of your SQL server. So like in that case, of course, if you start migrating both the things together, like you are upgrading your content databases as well as your UI, so in that case your CPU may be busy, so in that case you need to work with the hardware resources, particularly in that case. So basically, if I have to compare the two things, so like visual upgrade basically preserves the old master pages, CSS and HTML files. As we all know, if you have performed the migration of MOS 2007 to to SharePoint 2013, 10, but in the deferred site collection upgrade, basically it preserves the same thing like old master pages, like it can be compatible as your v4.master, the CSS and the HTML files, but it also preserves the features as well. So that means it is very important that your SharePoint 2010 features are also going to be migrated with deferred site collection upgrade. Basically, this upgrade allows you to use your previous version of SharePoint UI seamlessly. So that means if you have migrated to SharePoint 2013 but still you will be into the SharePoint 2010 with respect to, I can say, SharePoint 14 mode, not in the 15. But once you complete with the deferred site collection upgrade, so then and then you will be completely moved to the SharePoint 2013. As you can say, it's a SP15 mode. The major difference is like site collection. It's your SP site object UI will be upgraded granularly instead of site object in your SP web. And the very important fact and point to be noted, guys, that is once the site collection is upgraded, then it cannot be rolled back. So that means once you have changed your UI with and done with the deferred site collection upgrade, you cannot go back. So that means this step is very important and has to be taken very carefully, because once you have moved, then after whatever the changes are not compatible, so you need to do a re-exercise to make it compatible, and you have to deal with some other consequences in the migration part. So it is better you confirm your all customizations to be supported with SharePoint 2013, and then after it is preferable that you should go with the deferred site collection upgrade. Now along with this, when you have to talk about the two modes of SharePoint 2013, that is it's supporting SharePoint 2010 as SP14 mode and SharePoint 2013 as SP15 mode, so that if a user can access any type of page, because in your SharePoint environment you may have two hives, like 14 hive and the 15 hive. So if you look at this diagram, like 14 mode site can also have their own pages, and the 15 mode site is also having the pages. But if you notice here, like this is your default layouts where basically you referred with the SharePoint 2010, and the special hive basically referred with the 15. So that means your layout is having the 15. So that means your pages are coming from SharePoint 2013. So whenever you start with the request, and if you are requesting SharePoint 2010 like SP14 mode page, all the processes will be happen like similar way as right now it is being happen in the SharePoint 2010. But when it reaches to the 14 assembly redirect policy, so ultimately everything will be sent to your SharePoint 15 assembly, because you can consider that your site is basically referred with SP15 config database mode. So everything means your data, which means your pages and other settings you have stored in the config database, will be picked up from as per the SharePoint 15. SharePoint 15 assembly is responsible to execute the code, and then after you will get the response accordingly. So this is how the page rendering coexistence is available in SharePoint 2013. You can consider the two different hives, as you can see that that's a WSE, so your front end related. So 14 hive having the templates and the layout. So similar location is available here, that is with respect to the 15. You have the templates, and the templates are same with respect to your SP site, and the web are correlated with them. Along with that, you have these pages to be available which will be fetched from the different hives as well. Now, as I have mentioned that while doing the deferred site collection upgrade approach, basically it maintains the features as well. So now looking at this diagram, I can explain you the such other things like your SharePoint is also supporting the both modes. So if I have to discuss about SP13 mode, so it means here it comes. So like when you start or activating any feature which is related to SharePoint 2013, so basically you can have a different choices available. Like from SharePoint 2013 feature, you can enable the SharePoint 2010 features. You may have a specific version features like only the supported features for SharePoint 2013. But there are some of the features which are deprecated from SharePoint 2010 in SharePoint 2013. So those features are basically not going to be shown into the features list of the SharePoint 2013. But when you are in the SP 2010 mode, that means SP14 mode, so in that case you can see only restricted amount of features. The only features like basically the SP 2010 features replaced by SP 2013 features. You can see only SharePoint 2010 features because it is restricted to the SharePoint 2010. And yes, some features which are deprecated for SharePoint 2013 are also not going to be available for you. So that means if you are using SharePoint 2010 feature which is not available anymore in SharePoint 2013, so it's not going to be available in the SP14 mode. For example, I can say Web Analytics Service, because the Web Analytics Service are now not more available in SharePoint 2013. It is there, but it is been treated in some different way. Obviously, it is integrated with respect to the search service. So that's a different part of the story. So like this is just for your idea, like what type of feature will be available and not available while you are dealing with the feature fallback behavior of SharePoint 2013. Now looking at the other things as a user experience, so it is quite important to understand the user experience for SharePoint 2013, because if you are aware with that, SharePoint 2013 offers the HTML5. So like your existing SharePoint 2010 UI definitely is not going to be work with respect to SharePoint 2013, because there are so many changes have been applied and you need to do those changes to make your site compatible and preserve your same UI which was earlier you have. Now before you start migrating your UI particularly, so in that case you need to understand your customizations category with respect to your UI, information structure, or you can say information architecture which you have created, backend service applications, third-party customizations as well. So like in terms of UI, I would say your visual web parts, your application pages, your master page, basically they can be referred with the v4.master, style.css. So all these things has to be upgraded and to be supported and be compatible with SharePoint 2013 UI. In terms of information structure, so like your content type, content databases, site columns, site definitions, list definitions, site templates, so everything has to be compatible and to be available with respect to SharePoint 2013. In terms of backend service applications, so like sometimes some customizations basically we cannot see, like they are not visually available. I would say your HTTP handlers, your HTTP modules, means the customizations which you may have made with your IIS itself. So in that case it is important that you should have to be configured those changes while you are migrating your SharePoint 2010 to SharePoint 2013. And obviously in terms of third-party customization, so it is very important that you have to ask your vendor, whosoever have provided you the third-party customizations for SharePoint. It has to be compatible and has to be work with the SharePoint 2013. Otherwise those components are not going to be work anymore, and you may have to go with the re-exercise of, or maybe you need to redevelop them from scratch. In terms of user experience, so like you can see the two screens are same, like SP 2010 is basically looks in the SharePoint 2010 and the same side is been migrated in SharePoint 2013. It's only the matter of your mode selection. So obviously once you initially when you migrate from SharePoint 2010 to SharePoint 2013, so basically it migrated with respect to SP mode 14, and once you start with the deferred site collection upgrade approach, then it will lead you to the SP mode 15, as you can see in the another screenshot. Okay, another thing is like with respect to the copying the customization. So as I have mentioned, you have to look after the customizations which basically you have deployed to your SharePoint farm, site definitions, style sheets, web parts, web services, features and solutions, assemblies, web.config related changes, info path form templates, etc. So usually we do so many customizations with our SharePoint environment with respect to our requirements. So we need to record all the things as a documentation, and this documentation obviously is going to be help you. It means initially prepare it as a checklist, and at the end use it as a checklist again to validate your migrations. Now coming up to the next point, that is the migrating the workflows, because usually we have different types of workflows to be involved within the system, like we consume the out of box SharePoint designer, and sometimes we may have a custom code like through Visual Studio developed workflows as well. So those things has to be also migrated while you are performing the overall migration of your SharePoint site. So we'll have a kind of a few steps to be available with SharePoint out of box workflows. So obviously the common steps are basically defined, like I will just simply say, like in terms of you need to start with the usual migration process, because out of the box workflows are generally not required any much attention. Basically you start with the content migration, and content database once migrated, then after your SharePoint out of box workflow features are generally activated and you need to start working with them. But sometimes it happens that you activate the features but still the workflows are not getting displayed or not working as expected. So it is really important that once you perform your content migration, after that it is important you activate and verify your SharePoint out of the box workflow features, because I would like to share our personal experience which we have just recently faced. That is, one of our customer has migrated from SharePoint 2010 to SharePoint 2013, and unfortunately the SharePoint out of box workflows were not working. It's a simple workflows like approval workflows was not working, and there are some issues happen with respect to that, like some hidden list with respect to the workflows are not migrated properly, and which was causing the issue. So this type of issues may occur. So it is important that when you migrate, you need to test them, and means you need to continuously test them until you get the proper output or your things are working as per the expectation. So we'll move it further for the designer workflows. So that is a point is like basically SharePoint Designer 15. So basically it enables the SharePoint 2010 workflows to be worked with the SharePoint 2013 environment. So like you have the backward compatibilities available. It negotiates between two versions of SharePoint, as I mentioned. If it is a workflow foundation environment, so it deals with the SharePoint 2010. And for SharePoint 2013, the new workflow structure and architecture is available. That is Azure Workflow Service is available. So basically you need to install them on a separate machine or on the same machine of the SharePoint. So ultimately it shares the load of your SharePoint environment. Means you would like, if you are heavily working with the workflows, so you can host your workflows from different machine rather considering the same machine. So it's a big advantage in terms of performance. Yeah, but in terms of cost, it would lead you to can be costly. Another few advantages while migrating the SharePoint Designer workflows, it supports stages and loops, and it can also call the web services. So earlier this type of points like creating the loops in SharePoint Designer workflows and the calling the web services so was not possible, but now it is possible through SharePoint Designer workflows. And the email editor is now enriched with more tools and controls, so like you can define your email templates very easily and effectively within the SharePoint Designer itself. Talking more about the new workflow activities and the actions are available. So like as I mentioned that you can call HTTP web services, then you can also have you can translate the document. So in that case you can have, if you have enabled the translation service in the SharePoint 2013, so you can take the leverage of this activity as well. You can have you can also start the site workflow, you can start the list workflow. So like earlier stage it was not possible to start the workflow within the workflow, so like now the new actions and activities are available, so you can start the other workflows as well. So this is just a screenshot of the SharePoint Designer workflow stages. So like basically the stage is nothing but it's a kind of a entry point and a gate. So basically you have to define one entry level and the gate. Basically gets considered as a exit point of the stage. So primary core in the workflow 4. So obviously in the SharePoint 2013 the workflows are 4.0 of the .NET Framework 4.5. Basically it refers with the flowchart. It contains the multiple steps. So now the one limitation, or you can say the kind of a constraint, is like while you are designing the SharePoint Designer workflow, you need have only one stage is required. So then after you can define the multiple stages, but only one stage has to be defined and configured as per your need. Basically the stage mitigates the SharePoint Designer loop limitations. Now if I have to talk about the SharePoint loops, so there are two loops now available in SharePoint Designer workflow. One is the related the for loop, so like when you have a finite number of iterations required, and another is the like while, as we have available in the Visual Studio based workflow, over where like you have a no limitation, but when you have a certain conditions to be met and the workflow and the while loop has to be completed. So this type of things are new fact points are available, but now the points which you need to keep in mind while you are moving from SharePoint 2010 workflows to 13. So like obviously you need to rewrite the whole workflows of SharePoint 2010 to 2013 because they are not simply migrated directly. You need to reauthor them in SharePoint 2013 environment. But if you do not want to do that practice again, so you can still take the leverage of the backward compatibility of SharePoint Designer workflows. Basically it works with the interop itself. So like still your existing workflows will work as you have designed in SharePoint 2010. Now in terms of talking the custom workflows, now custom workflows always comes with the SharePoint Designer workflows. If you have any custom activities involved, like you code based activities are people usually write to do it, like if you would like to take a printout, or say you would like to define or configure the print related activities, so you can define the create the custom workflow activity and you can consume them through SharePoint Designer workflow. Other things to be noted is associated custom forms with workflows, like initiation forms, association forms, and more important is infopath forms compatibility. Now, because in SharePoint Designer workflows, infopath forms are now not possible because it simply comes with the standard ASPX pages. So infopath forms are now not supported anymore in SharePoint Designer workflows. And but especially yes, for the third-party workflows compatibility if you are consuming the Nintex or K2 workflows. So while migrating all the custom workflows, you need to consider all these things in your mind, because it may help you and it may not lead you to the inconsistent migration of your SharePoint environment. Another point is like if you have the code-based workflow and would like to migrate to SharePoint 2013, so like I would say like you can refer the first 4 points. It's going to be considered for the standard migration of any code of SharePoint 2010 which is developed in Visual Studio 2010 and to be migrated to SharePoint 2013 with respect to Visual Studio 2012. So obviously you have to start looking at the SharePoint 2010 and SharePoint 2013 GAC locations, because both have the different GAC locations, because SharePoint 2010 basically runs on .NET Framework 3.5 and SharePoint 2013 runs on .NET Framework 4.5. So 4.5 and 3.5 is having the different GAC locations, so it is important you target the proper GAC location while you are migrating your source code. Then you need, before you open your solution of SharePoint 2010 into the for SharePoint 2013, particularly with the Visual Studio 2012, you need to modify your CS Proj file of custom SharePoint solution. So over where you need to change certain things, like you need to change the framework version and to be changed to the version 4.5, and you need to add this tag into the CS Proj file of SharePoint to Visual Studio 2010 CS Proj file, that is target office version should be set as a 15.0. Along with that, you need to change your package designer, and over where you will find one attribute, that is a SharePoint product version, and you need to set it to 15. For 2010 it was set as a 14. Then after, you need to reload your project, means just opening the solution, and you reload your Visual Studio 2010 project in Visual Studio 2012, and verifies that your references are mapped to the SharePoint 15 API, rather it maps to the SharePoint 14 APIs. The last point that is only makes the difference with respect to the workflow migration, and that is the SharePoint 2013 workflows are now only declarative workflows, so it not allows you to write down the workflows with the code segments, like you cannot write the coding of C# or VB.NET in it. So for that, for your all custom logics and your business logic, you need to create web services or WCF services, and then after you need to consume them. One more thing is, like, you can author the workflow by just writing down the syntax as well, because earlier SharePoint 2010 workflows been authored as a XOML file, but now SharePoint 2013 workflows can be authored as a XAML file. It's a standard your WPF or Silverlight type of language that you can maintain, and it will start rendering your components on the designer screen. So this is more or less about the workflows while you are migrating them, and this is how you can manage them. Now next point coming on it, that is how to manage disruptions and the downtime. So basically disruptions are like the more painful comparing the downtime. So downtimes are like, it's a zero downtime obviously. So that means if I say I have no downtime, so it's wrong. I have always downtime while performing the migration. So disruption is nothing but it's just your records that what are the things are possible and what are the things are not possible. So before and prior to do the migration, it is important you prepare the strategy to make it compatible your customization, and then after you take your migration on the further stages. So like the first question, like migration, what can be? So what means what is not possible? So that means the very first point comes in, that is PowerPoint broadcast site collection. So that means if you have the PowerPoint broadcast site and you are looking to migrate them, so it is not going to be possible. So it may lead you to the disruptions. If you have heavily used content editor web parts, so now they are not longer supported in SharePoint 2013, but replacement is obviously available and make available by the Microsoft itself. It's called as a script editor web part. It's extensionally good, and like it is enhanced than content editor web parts. So these are the things that basically you need to preserve while before moving your migration from SharePoint 2010 to SharePoint 2013. In terms of performance, so you need to expect some performance. As I mentioned, you need to plan your upgraded performance as well. You have to think about your farm topology. So like you need to replicate your similar topology which is available in existing SharePoint 2010 environment infrastructure. So similarly, same thing has to be created into the SharePoint 2013. Also, a few more painful changes comes in, and which are obviously not acceptable. That is the URL changes after the migration. So it is a better practice you use the common URLs, or start preferring not with your machine name or any IP. It is better that you start creating the alias, and then after you look after the URL. So you can use the same alias as you earlier you are using for SharePoint 2010, and you can start pointing it to the migrated site as well, so that it gives you a less pain to your end users as well. The governance and the notification plan has to be authored, so like all the stakeholders who are consuming the SharePoint 2010 or SharePoint 2013 sites can be aware that what type of migration and for how long this informations are not going to be available. Also, in terms of customizations, so decide the code and codeless customizations as well. So like in terms of codeless, you need to look after your info path forms and the data connections which you have created, and has to be available after the migration as well. And the very important thing is that that's a clean up the environment. So basically, if you perform the well cleanup of your existing environment of SharePoint 2010, so basically it gives you less downtime and very less disruptions in the migration process. So moving to the and validating the successful migration. So how I can say it means I have migrated the things have been proper or validated. So obviously you need to look after the checklist. So as earlier you have prepared the checklist, you need to start verifying that whether the recorded operations and the recorded functionalities of SharePoint 2010 means your previous environment is now still working in this manner. So very initial thing that you can carry it out to you can look after the logs. So you have two different types of logs available while you perform the migration. The upgrade logs, so basically you can review them through the ULS viewer, because the ULS service is basically responsible to log each and every activity and everything's on their SharePoint instance. And the application event log, so certain other events are basically being happen on the server of your SharePoint or other connected farm server, so you can record all this activity and you can continuously review them to validate your migration. When it comes to the specific migration components of SharePoint, like your environment, so like first of all you need to start review and validate your web applications, so your configurations with respect to the web applications like throttle, resource throttle mapping, your resource usage, so those things has to be reviewed and validate, means the same things have been preserved or not. You need to validate your services, the validation of services like your application services which you have consumed, like search, manage metadata services, user profile services. Validate your external data sources, mean whether you are reachable or not with respect to your info path forms, BCS connections, obviously your external content types and the external list. Excel service connections, if you are targeting the network paths. External targets for the enterprise search, means you have taken the additional leverage of enterprise search to be searched on your network drives as well. So all the network drives can be indexed once again and can be searchable in terms of as a search result. Authentication providers, so it's a very important thing, has to be validated, because in SharePoint 2010 if you have not changed your authentication mechanism to claims based, so maybe it won't work properly in SharePoint 2013 environment. And for the customization in terms of UI, so you need to find out the defects and fix them as per the need, because it's a very difficult to know about the things like how the UI is going to be reflect with respect to the SharePoint 2010 to SharePoint 2013, because everybody branding their site in a different way, so it is hard to find out. But yes, hard to find out, but can be fixed and as well. Now it's a bonus thing is available over here, that is the migration from MOS 2007 to SharePoint 2013. So of course it is possible because many of our clients having the MOS 2007 environment and they would like to take the leverage of SharePoint 2013 because earlier stage they have not migrated to SharePoint 2010. So that means you do not need to stop at 2010. I would say you can still go with the SharePoint 2013 despite you have the MOS 2007, because in SharePoint 2013 it supports two different modes. So like you need to just go with the 2 cycles of migration. As I have mentioned as a fact that there is no direct migration from SharePoint 2007 to SharePoint 2013 unless until if you are using the third-party migration tools which are available in their on the internet, so you can use those tools as well. But if you are not looking to spend your costing and money on this tool, so you can still do this migration from 2007 to 2013. So basically, so these are the things being considered and to be tested. I would recommend few things like when you test your environment for the migration. So testing is nothing but it's your like prepare, implement and verify. So like it is recommended that you perform the migration on test environment for a couple of more times rather you just directly moving to the production environment, because once you reach to the production environment, means obviously it is expected that it should comes with a very less pain of disruptions and the downtime. So it is more important that segmentize your each and everything, document each and everything, find out your issues, find and fix them and record them for the further future reference as well. So these are the practices basically we do have followed with our customer, and we have successfully migrated couple of environments as well, particularly with SharePoint 2010 to 2013. So the next we are going to open the question and answer session. So you can start putting your questions and answers. You can also write about the other SharePoint queries as well on info@cygnet-infotech.com. So we are starting the QA session for 10 minutes. So you may raise your questions. Okay, we are having a one question from Vivian Tran. The question is, can I get a copy of this migration email to me? Yes, of course. Means after the completion of this webinar, we are going to share the complete recording and the presentation on our site, and we'll also mail you individually as well. So you will definitely receive the presentation on your email address. Thank you.